The observation deck of the Galactic Council's flagship hummed with the quiet efficiency of 1,000 different species working in perfect harmony. Well, almost perfect. Commander Zex'thala of the Vorthan Empire tapped her 6 claws against the polished metal railing, creating a rhythmic clicking that made the nearby Centaurian delegates wince. "Another human colony ship," she muttered, watching the small vessel drift through the void like a lost child looking for its mother. "That makes what, 700 this cycle?" Her aide, a nervous little creature called Pip from the Squeaker homeworld, consulted his datapad with trembling hands. 743, Commander. They keep spreading across the galaxy like some kind of biological infection. Zex'thala's mandibles clicked in what passed for amusement among her kind. The humans were cute, really. Soft, squishy little things that couldn't survive without their environmental suits in most civilized atmospheres. Their technology was laughably primitive, their ships held together with what appeared to be optimism and spare parts. Most entertaining of all, they seemed to think they belonged among the stars with species that had been traveling between worlds when their ancestors were still figuring out which end of a stick was pointy. "Have you read their latest diplomatic proposal?" Zex'thala asked, pulling up a holographic display that made Pip's eyes water. The translation matrix struggled with human concepts, turning their carefully worded request into something that sounded like a child asking permission to play in the grown-up sandbox. They want to establish a trade route to the Kepler Nebula. Pip squeaked, his voice rising an octave with each word. They claim their cargo vessels can make the journey in half the time of our fastest scouts. The commander's laugh was like broken glass scraping against stone. Half the time? With those rust buckets they call starships? I've seen more advanced propulsion systems on children's toys. What Zex'thala didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Marcus Kane was listening to every word. Marcus floated in the maintenance shaft above the observation deck, his modified environmental suit keeping him invisible to the various sensor rays that swept the area every few minutes. The suit was his own design, cobbled together from salvaged alien tech and human ingenuity. It wasn't pretty, but it worked, just like everything else humans made. The translation device in his helmet fed him a steady stream of alien chatter, and what he heard made his blood pressure rise like mercury in a thermometer. 3 months of diplomatic negotiations, 3 months of carefully worded proposals and respectful requests. And this was how they really saw humanity. Cute, primitive, harmless. "Sir, we're picking up elevated heart rate," came the voice of Sarah Chen, his partner in this little reconnaissance mission, speaking through their encrypted comm channel. "You need to stay calm." Marcus forced himself to breathe slowly, the way his old drill sergeant had taught him back when the biggest threat to humanity was other humans. "I'm fine, Chen. Just enjoying the show." Below him, Zex'thala was warming to her subject. The amusing thing is how seriously they take themselves. "Did you see their delegation leader yesterday? That Kane fellow, standing there in his little pressure suit, talking about mutual cooperation and shared benefits. I almost felt sorry for him. Should we approve their trade route request?" Pip asked, his whiskers twitching with nervous energy. "Oh, absolutely," the commander replied, her voice dripping with condescension. "Let them have their little route. What harm could they possibly do? It's not like they have the technology or the backbone to challenge anyone who matters." Marcus smiled grimly in the darkness of the maintenance shaft. Famous last words, he thought. He'd heard variations of the same speech from bigger, better-equipped enemies than these alien bureaucrats. The thing about being underestimated was that it gave you options. "Chun, start recording everything," he whispered into his comm. "I want every word, every gesture, every time they scratch their alien backsides." "Already on it, boss." "Question, though, what's the plan here? We could expose this to the media, show everyone how the aliens really feel about us." Marcus was quiet for a long moment, watching as the alien delegates continued their casual discussion of human inferiority. "No," he finally said. "That would just make us look weak. Like we're running to mommy because the big kids were mean to us." "Then what?" "Then we show them exactly how wrong they are about us being harmless." The next morning, the Galactic Council's daily briefing was interrupted by what their security chief would later describe as an impossibility. Every major communication array in the sector simultaneously broadcast the same message. Not just the official council channels, but military frequencies, civilian networks, even the entertainment streams that carried alien soap operas to bored housewives across a dozen worlds. The message was simple, delivered in perfect universal standard by a human male whose face was hidden behind a featureless black mask. Greetings, citizens of the galaxy. My name is irrelevant, but my message is not. For too long, humanity has been treated as a junior partner in galactic affairs. We have been dismissed, patronized, and ignored by species who consider themselves our superiors. Today, that changes. In the council chambers, emergency klaxons wailed as technicians scrambled to regain control of their networks. Commander Zex'thala stood frozen at her command post, watching the impossible broadcast with growing horror. Yesterday, the masked human continued, I listened to your leaders discuss my people with the same casual contempt you might reserve for insects. You find us amusing, primitive, harmless. You approved our trade route request not out of respect or diplomacy, but because you believe we pose no threat to anyone who matters. The feed cut to recordings of the previous day's conversation, complete with translation overlays that left no doubt about what had been said. Zex'thala's voice echoed across the galaxy, her dismissive laughter now sounding cruel and short-sighted. You want to know what harm we can do? The human asked, his voice calm and conversational, like he was discussing the weather. Allow me to demonstrate. The first target was a Vorthan Empire's primary communication relay, a massive structure that served as the nervous system for their entire military network. It simply stopped working. No explosion, no dramatic collapse, just a gradual shutdown that left their fleet commanders talking empty space. The second target was more personal. Every data pad, every computer terminal, every digital display in Zex'thala's personal quarters began playing the same message on loop. Her own words, recorded and played back with perfect clarity. They keep spreading across the galaxy like some kind of biological infection, but it was the third target that really got their attention. The Centaurian Trade Federation's crown jewel, an automated factory complex that produced luxury goods for half the galaxy, began manufacturing something new. Instead of silk scarves and decorative crystals, the production line started turning out small metal plaques, each one engraved with a simple message, made by humans, with love. Within hours, millions of these plaques were being distributed through normal shipping channels to every major world in the sector. The message was clear. If humans could take control of the galaxy's most secure manufacturing facility, they could take control of anything. The panic started slowly, like water beginning to boil. Military commanders discovered that their supposedly impregnable networks had been compromised. Civilian authorities found their emergency broadcast systems hijacked. Even the entertainment networks were affected, with alien sitcoms suddenly interrupted by human-produced content that was somehow more entertaining than anything they'd been watching. In his hidden base somewhere in the Kepler Nebula, Marcus Kane watched the chaos unfold with grim satisfaction. The facility around him hummed with activity as dozens of human technicians coordinated the most complex cyber warfare operation in galactic history. What the aliens didn't understand was that humans had been preparing for this moment since the first day they'd set foot on an alien world. Every diplomatic mission had been an intelligence-gathering operation. Every trade negotiation had been an opportunity to map alien networks. Every cultural exchange had been a chance to plant sleeping viruses and backdoors in systems the aliens thought were secure. For decades, humans had been playing the part of the harmless junior species, while quietly building the tools they would need when the mask finally came off. Status report, Marcus called out, removing the black mask he'd worn for the broadcast. Vorthan military communications are down across 3 sectors, reported Linda Martinez from her workstation. Centaurian trade networks are operating at 15% efficiency, and the squeakers are demanding an emergency council session. Marcus nodded, feeling a familiar weight of command settling on his shoulders. This wasn't revenge. Not really. This was education. The aliens needed to learn that underestimating humans was a mistake they couldn't afford to make twice. What about casualties, he asked. 0 confirmed fatalities, came the reply from the medical monitoring station. We're keeping this clean, boss. No one gets hurt unless they force our hand. That was important to Marcus. Humans might be preparing to reshape the balance of power in the galaxy, but they weren't monsters. The aliens had dismissed them as harmless, and in a way, they were right. Humans didn't want to conquer or destroy. They just wanted respect. But sometimes, respect had to be earned the hard way. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened 18 hours after the first broadcast, with representatives from 47 different species crowding into the Great Chamber. The air recycling systems worked overtime to accommodate the various atmospheric requirements, creating a haze that seemed appropriate for confusion and fear that filled the room. Commander Zex'thala stood at the central podium, her usually pristine uniform showing signs of the sleepless night she'd endured. "Fellow delegates," she began, her voice carrying none of its usual authority, "we face an unprecedented situation." Unprecedented? The voice came from the human section, where Ambassador Sarah Chen rose from her seat with fluid grace. She was no longer the junior diplomat who had sat quietly through months of condescending negotiations. Today, she spoke with the authority of a species that had just demonstrated it could bring galactic civilization to its knees without firing a single shot. "Commander Zex'thala," Chen continued, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics, "I believe the word you're looking for is predictable. What did you expect would happen when you spent decades treating us like trained pets?" The Vorthan commander's mandibles clicked nervously. "Ambassador Chen, surely we can resolve the situation through diplomatic channels. There's no need for these demonstrations." Chen smiled, and somehow that expression was more frightening than any weapon. "Oh, but there is, Commander. You see, we tried diplomacy. For 30 years, we submitted proposals, attended meetings, and followed proper protocols. And what did we get in return? You called us a biological infection. You laughed at our technology. You approved our requests not out of respect, but out of pity." "That was taken out of context," Zex'thala protested, but her words sounded hollow even to her own ears. "Was it?" Chen gestured, and the chamber's main display activated, showing a compilation of similar conversations from dozens of different alien officials. Humans being dismissed as primitive, human proposals being approved as jokes, human diplomats being treated like amusing children who didn't know their place. "This," Chen said, her voice rising to fill the vast chamber, "is 30 years of context." The silence that followed was deafening. 47 different species, representing the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy, sat in stunned recognition of their own words being played back to them. The mask had finally come off, and nobody liked what they saw underneath. Marcus watched the emergency council session from his hidden command center, feeling a mixture of satisfaction and sadness that surprised him. This wasn't how he'd wanted things to go. Given a choice, he would have preferred that humanity's emergence as a galactic power had come through cooperation and mutual respect rather than through the systematic humiliation of their supposed betters. But sometimes you didn't get to choose your battles. Sometimes the battles chose you. 3 days after what galactic historians would later call the Human Awakening, the first shot of actual warfare was fired in the most unlikely of places. A squeaker merchant vessel, carrying luxury foods to the resort world of Paradiso Prime, found itself face-to-face with a human patrol craft that shouldn't have existed. Captain Vex of the merchant ship Profit Margin stared at his display in disbelief. The human vessel was sleek, angular, and absolutely bristling with weapon systems that violated at least 6 different galactic treaties. More importantly, it was blocking his route to Paradiso Prime with what appeared to be casual indifference to his schedule. "Unknown human vessel," Vex transmitted, his voice carrying the automatic authority that came from centuries of squeaker dominance in the merchant trade. "You are interfering with a registered commercial flight. Move aside immediately or face the consequences." The response came from a human female, whose voice carried the kind of confidence that made Vex fur stand on end. "Captain Vex of the Profit Margin, this is Commander Riley Santos of the Human Vessel Payback. You are ordered to submit to inspection under the authority of the newly established Human Defense Initiative." "The what now?" Vex sputtered, his whiskers twitching with indignation. "There is no such authority recognized by the Galactic Council." "There is now," Santos replied, and something in her tone suggested that arguing might not be the wisest course of action. Stand down your engines and prepare to be boarded. What followed was the first military engagement between humans and aliens in recorded history, and it lasted exactly 47 seconds. The Squeaker vessel's defensive systems, state-of-the-art technology that had cost more than most planetary defense budgets, were neutralized so quickly that Vex wasn't even sure what had happened. One moment his weapons were powered and ready. The next they were displaying error messages in languages he didn't recognize. The boarding party that came aboard the profit margin consisted of 6 humans in environmental suits that looked nothing like the crude equipment the galaxy was used to seeing. These suits were sleek, sophisticated, and equipped with technology that made Vex's expensive merchant vessel look like a child's toy. "Captain," said the lead human, removing her helmet to reveal a woman with steel-gray eyes and the kind of smile that suggested she was enjoying herself far more than was probably healthy. "I'm Commander Santos. We need to have a little chat." 20 minutes later, the profit margin continued on its way to Paradiso Prime, but its cargo manifest had been updated. Along with the luxury foods and entertainment supplies, it now carried a new addition: 10,000 copies of a document titled The Human Manifesto, a guide to not being idiots. The document, which quickly became the most widely distributed piece of literature in galactic history, was written in the same conversational tone that had characterized the original broadcast. It outlined, in excruciating detail, every mistake the galactic community had made in their dealings with humanity. It was educational, informative, and absolutely devastating in its casual dismantling of alien superiority complexes. But more than that, it was funny. The humans had managed to turn their systematic humiliation of galactic civilization into a comedy routine that had alien beings laughing at their own prejudices. It was a masterpiece of psychological warfare, disguised as a self-help book. Back on the Galactic Council flagship, Commander Zex'thala was discovering that being the face of alien incompetence was not a career-enhancing experience. Her superiors had made it clear that the human situation was now her responsibility to resolve, preferably without admitting that the mighty Vorthan Empire had been outmaneuvered by a species they considered barely above pond scum. "Status report," she demanded, striding into the tactical center where her best analysts were trying to make sense of the new reality. "It's not good, Commander," replied her chief of intelligence, a being whose name was unpronounceable to most species, and who went by the nickname Steve for the sake of convenience. "The humans have revealed capabilities that we didn't know existed. Their ships are faster than our scouts, their weapons are more advanced than our military designs, and their cyber warfare capabilities are apparently centuries ahead of anything we've developed." "How is that possible?" Zex'thala asked, though she was beginning to suspect she didn't want to know the answer. Steve activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy from a strategic perspective. Red dots indicated confirmed human positions, while blue showed the locations of major alien facilities. The pattern that emerged was sobering. The humans hadn't just been spreading randomly across the galaxy. They'd been positioning themselves at every major choke point, communication hub, and trade route intersection for decades. "They've been playing a long game, Commander," Steve explained, his voice carrying a mixture of admiration and fear. "While we were dismissing them as harmless primitives, they were building the largest intelligence network in galactic history. Every human colony, every trade mission, every cultural exchange was part of a coordinated strategy to map our weaknesses and prepare for this moment." Zex'thala stared at the display, feeling something she hadn't experienced in her long military career: the cold touch of fear. "What do they want?" "That's the interesting part," Steve replied, switching to a new display that showed intercepted human communications. "They don't want to conquer us. They don't want to destroy us. They just want us to treat them as equals. That's it. That's it. According to our analysis of their manifesto and public statements, they'll withdraw all hostile actions and return to normal diplomatic relations the moment the Galactic Council formally recognizes humanity as a full member species with all associated rights and privileges." Zex'thala was quiet for a long moment, processing the implications. "So we've been brought to our knees by a species that wants to join the club we've been keeping them out of?" "Essentially, yes." The irony wasn't lost on her. In their effort to keep humanity in its place, They'd forced the humans to demonstrate that they were already far beyond anything the Galactic Council could control. It was like refusing to let someone join your exclusive golf club, only to discover they own the entire golf course. Meanwhile, in the Kepler Nebula, Marcus Kane was dealing with a different kind of problem. Success, it turned out, came with its own complications. "Sir," called out Jenny Walsh from her monitoring station, "we're getting reports of human colonies declaring independence from local alien governments. The settlers on New Terra just told the Centaurian governor to take a long walk out an airlock." Marcus frowned. This wasn't what he'd wanted. The point had been to gain respect for humanity as a whole, not to start a galactic civil war. "What's the situation?" 12 colonies have declared independence so far, Jenny reported. Another 30 are demanding immediate renegotiation of their settlement agreements. And the colony on Rigel 7 just sent a fruit basket to their Vorthan administrator with a note saying, "Thanks for everything, but we got this now." Despite the seriousness of the situation, Marcus found himself fighting back a smile. The fruit basket was a nice touch. Trust humans to declare independence with snark. "Any violence?" he asked. "None so far," Jenny replied. The colonial administrators seem to be too stunned to react. Most of them are just packing up and leaving. That was something, at least. Marcus had been worried that the revelation of human capabilities would lead to a violent crackdown on human settlements. Instead, it seemed to have had the opposite effect. The aliens were so shocked by the complete reversal of the power dynamic that they were simply walking away rather than risk finding out what else humans were capable of. His comm system chimed with an incoming priority message. The sender was listed as Galactic Council official channels, which meant they wanted to talk. Marcus considered ignoring it, but curiosity won out. The holographic projection that appeared in his command center showed Ambassador Chen, but she wasn't alone. Standing beside her was Commander Zex'thala, looking like she'd aged several years in the past few days. The Vorthan officer's usual arrogant bearing had been replaced by something that looked suspiciously like humility. "Marcus," Chen said, using his real name for the first time in any official communication. "The council wants to negotiate." Marcus leaned back in his chair, studying the two figures on the hologram. "Negotiate what? They've already given us everything we asked for. Full council membership, equal representation, formal recognition as a major galactic power. What more is there to discuss?" It was Zex'thala who answered, her voice carrying none of its former condescension. "We want to know how you did it. How you managed to infiltrate our most secure systems. How you built this level of technology without anyone noticing. How you coordinated a galactic operation of this scope without triggering any of our early warning systems." Marcus was quiet for a moment, then started laughing. It wasn't bitter or mocking laughter, just genuine amusement at the absurdity of the situation. "You want to know our secret? Commander, we told you our secret 30 years ago. You just weren't listening." "I don't understand," Zex'thala said. "Human adaptability," Marcus explained. "It was in every diplomatic proposal we ever submitted, every cultural exchange program we participated in, every trade agreement we signed. We kept telling you that humans were good at adapting to new situations, at learning from their environment, at making the best of whatever resources were available. You thought that meant we were weak. It actually meant we were learning." The truth was elegant in its simplicity. While the aliens had been dismissing human capabilities, humans had been studying alien technology, adapting it, improving it, and preparing for the day when they would need to prove themselves. Every diplomatic mission had been a learning opportunity. Every trade relationship had been a chance to acquire new technologies. Every cultural exchange had been an intelligence-gathering operation disguised as friendship. "We didn't build this in secret," Marcus continued. "We built it in plain sight, using techniques and technologies that we learned from you. The difference is that we actually paid attention to what we were learning." Chen stepped forward in the projection. "The Council has agreed to all our demands, Marcus. Humanity has full membership rights, equal representation, and formal recognition as a major power. The question now is what happens next?" Marcus looked around his command center, taking in the dozens of human operators who had made this moment possible. They'd achieved something unprecedented in galactic history, a complete reversal of the power structure without massive bloodshed or destruction. But now, they had to figure out how to move forward. What happens next, Marcus said slowly, is that we become the kind of galactic citizens we always said we wanted to be. We participate in council decisions as equals. We contribute our knowledge and capabilities to the common good. We prove that humans deserve their place among the stars not through force, but through achievement. And the colonies that have declared independence? Zex'thala asked. Marcus smiled. That's between them and their former administrators. But I suspect you'll find that most of them are willing to work out reasonable agreements now that they're negotiating from a position of equality rather than subservience. The transmission ended, leaving Marcus alone with his thoughts and the quiet hum of his command center. In the space of a week, humanity had gone from being the galaxy's amusing pets to being recognized as one of its major powers. It was a transformation that would have consequences for generations to come. But that was a problem for future leaders to solve. Right now, Marcus Kane had accomplished what he'd set out to do. Humanity was no longer harmless in the eyes of the galaxy. They were no longer dismissed, patronized, or ignored. They had earned their place at the table where the galaxy's future would be decided. As he prepared to shut down the operation and return to normal diplomatic channels, Marcus reflected on the irony of the situation. The aliens had been right about one thing. Humans were different from every other species in the galaxy, but they'd been wrong about what that difference meant. Humans weren't harmless. They never had been. They'd just been waiting for the right moment to prove it. The galaxy would never make the mistake of underestimating them again.